tonight. So I'm very excited, and I know a lot of the network members are appreciative for you presenting because there is definitely a pilina between our cultures, but there's still a lot to learn that and grow from each other, and we've definitely been able to do that this year. And we're having Josie and her group, or her hui with We Are Oceania, with us at our Canoe People's Exchange this past springtime. Definitely allowed us to grow that pilina, which we are excited to ho'olu and to grow from. And so I will give it over to Josie, and she can start her presentation.
Thank you so much, Tate. Mahalo nui for inviting me to be a speaker on this series, and just to be in this space. I want to first of all acknowledge that this is a space of privilege for me. I being in this space just make me feel nervous because I know that I am a visitor to Hawaii, and so I want to do my due diligence to first of all acknowledge the land, the ocean, the culture, the people, the spirit of this land. I want to apologize in advance if anything that I would say in this space or share in this space would offend anyone or offend the spirit of this space. It's not my intention to do that. My intention is to share my story on how how we come to be a part of the community here in Hawaii and the work that we do and the reason behind that. I think that's what I want to share today with everyone today. So without any further ado, I want to start out with saying that I come from a very small island in Chuuk, and Chuuk means mountain. My island is an atoll. So in Chuuk, we're known to be the people of the Sand Islands. So in my culture, I am a Fanapian, or instead of being a Chukis. So that's how it is back home. So Chuuk is a more colonial term to just lump everybody together. But yeah, so I wanna, if I may, I can share my screen with folks, with you. Let me see. Okay, so we are Oceania, and why we are Oceania. Before I can even explain why we are Oceania, I want to say that when I came to Hawaii, it was 1989, where there was hardly any Micronesians, and nobody, like a lot of people would mistaken me as a Samoan or a Tongan, sometimes Filipina, because they don't really know Micronesians. And when I said, no, I'm Micronesian, they're like, oh, where is that? And I had to explain. That was 1989. And this is also like in our history in Micronesia, it was 2 years after the Compact of Free Association was signed with the United States. It's a treaty. It's like a relationship that we can come to United States freely without any visa, without restriction, and in exchange with the United States having control over our water, our land, our air for any military purpose, and denial right to any other foreign country for any military powers or military activities in the islands. We are independent politically. We can make, the diplomatic relationship with other countries. We are a member of the United Nations, but we're very small countries. So there's like 3 compact countries in Micronesia: RMI, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of Palau. I come from the Federated States of Micronesia, and I think a lot of people refer to us as the Micronesians. But if you know any Marshallese or know any Palauans, they're also Micronesians, including Chamorro, or people that come from Guam or are natives of Guam. So our history has a lot to do with the forming of We Are Oceania, and my experience in Hawaii has a lot to do with the forming of We Are Oceania. I co-found We Are Oceania. I also started We Are Oceania, meaning I I started from scratch, and until we become independent, we are a 501c3 uh, nonprofit operated by Micronesians. And that whole movement, for me, it's an influence of my Native Hawaiian friends who were and are still fighting for, you know, for their own independent in their own land. And I think that's where I feel like that's where I connect with, with the Native Hawaiians. That when I came to school here, that was the first time that I learned that we are in the same situation except different, kind. Like you were overthrown. For us, we are slowly getting there. Even the comeback treaty, when I look at it now, I see that wherever money is involved, all this grand base support, um, you know, they still control. And with the military control, we are still control. So um, so indigenously, we still are trying to find our voice and our autonomy. So this is why we created We Are Oceania. It was also our response to our own way of helping our community. And for me, because I created created it, it was I know my people, and I know the strength of my people, and I know that my people are capable, and I know that they're smart, and I know that they are blessed and how do I say, wise, because we know two cultures. We know of the American culture because we come to learn about that in school, and we still know our culture. We learned that, from our kupunas, and it passed on. And I really value that. So we created this organization to empower Micronesians. So let me see. Yeah. So exactly. Our mission is to empower Micronesian community to navigate success while honoring the integrity of our diverse heritage. And our vision is that we see, or like visualize a world in which indigenous people, regardless of where they are in the world, that they are respected, they are celebrated, and that they are honored as part of the local culture of success. I think a lot of the times we still struggle until today, and like our children are struggling in school because they have a different way of learning, and our way of learning is not honored in the school that we go to, and that starts from home. We go to school to learn the American way. We don't go to school to learn our culture. And this is why this is so important to us, that as we realize when we're moving away to seek a better opportunity, we're losing more and more of our culture. And our people tend to believe that we're not smart enough, and we don't know enough, and we're lazy, and those kind of things. So these are the programs that we do at We Are Oceania as a way to take care of the needs, and at the same time kind of like teach and help our people to understand um, all of these things, and how we can get out of, get out of, I don't want to call it poverty, but we can, like when we come to Hawaii, we know that a lot of our people, they take up the entry level job because of the lack of English, or lack of employment or market skills, because we don't have work back home. We live by the land. We know how to cultivate our taros. We know how to do all those local work. We know how to navigate and all those things, but we don't know like how to build a modern house. We don't know how to use technology and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the times when we come with lacking those. So uh, one of them, of course, also our people are the most unhealthy people because of the history of nuclear testing in our country, in our area. We also I look back to when I was young and I used to eat those spam and corned beef and rice, and I start really loving them and wanting to change my diet, and or like just loving rice because I can cook it in 30 minutes and it's done. I can serve it. Whereas for the taro, I gotta go to the taro beds. I gotta, you know, pick the taro. I gotta plant the taro, or even like wheat before you pick up the taro. All of those takes like almost a whole day to do, and then I come, I still have to cook it. So, you know, like the changes that was happening a lot of back home, a lot of people, when new things coming into our home, and it's different, we tend to believe that, oh, this is a better thing, not understanding that it actually dangerous to our health, and that's why we end up being unhealthy. On top of that, you know, the nuclear testing that happened in the Marshall Islands, which affects a lot of us. Our World War II happened in all Micronesia, in all Pacific. Actually, it started, I would say, started Pearl Harbor, and it ended somewhere down there. Um, anyways, and then during, of course, during the pandemic, we started up this helpline specialist. We created a helpline that would hire people that speak all the different languages so that we could help the people that were so impacted by COVID. If you remember, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders and Filipinos were like the most impacted by COVID. And this is why we did this. We also built a team. We call them the community resource specialists. These are also known as the community health workers. So we help our community plus other immigrant community in providing culturally and linguistically appropriate services, or services that are linguistically and culturally safe or appropriate. We also started a program, we call it the community connectivity. And this is because a lot of our older people don't really know how to use or don't have the means to connect to the, you know, virtual world. At one point during COVID, and I even just most recently, a lot of people would not be able to, you know, like know how to connect, to communicate with their families when there was social distancing. So we created this so that people can be able to um, you know, like attend funeral. These were some of our values that COVID didn't only impact like our health, but it's also impact our culture, which for us indigenous people is part of our health. Like I think it was like when we're sick, it's the time that we need our family the most. But with COVID, it was the time that we could not see our family. So we created the community connectivity so that we could find a way to help our community to connect and stay connected. We also have our youth program. The youth program we have under the YHTP, which is a hot grant, and we also have the anti-hate, where we help our youths to connect to our culture. And I think this is where I'm really excited about, because it really help us to now uh, help the youths to learn our culture and learn our values. Um, we also have, once a year, we have our Micronesian Youth Summit. And I'm gonna keep track of, I don't need to go over this because that's more for people that need our service. Um, and we help everyone that is qualified for Medicaid. These are some of the outreach that we do. So we do outreach in the community. We go out and we help people wherever we can reach them. Our community is also known to be one of the hardest community to reach. So we do a lot of outreaching. They're like shy to come to services. You know, when people would come to us and say, we don't see a lot of Micronesians at the food drive. How come? Can you guys help us out? So we did all those things to try and kind of like, you know, connect our people. Um, this so our helpline, we're able to provide the language in Chuukese, Kosrayan, Marshallese, Panavian, and at one point we had Samoan. Uh, yeah, and these are all languages of Micronesia, because Micronesia have different languages. And then we also, so for our community resource specialist or community resource program, we help with rental assistance. So like during COVID and until today, we help people that need, to apply for housing, rental assistance. We were contracted by CNHA. CNHA stands for Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. So we work with them to help the other, like the Micronesians that were applying, so we could help them with language. And then another service that we provide is we provide case management service for anyone that does not have a case manager. A lot of the times, people uh, are only able to connect to services if they have a case manager, because either they cannot speak the language or they're too ashamed or afraid to reach out and reach out directly to the services. These are just some pictures of our outreach. We partner up with different organizations here on Oahu, like Native Hawaiian organizations, Pacific Island organizations, so that we can reach our people, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, to get the food out, the resources out to them. We do advocacy work, where we've been fighting for Medicaid restoration. So like when I first came to Hawaii, Micronesians were eligible for Medicaid insurance, which is a federal government healthcare coverage. Sometimes I think it was like in 1996 under Bill Clinton, they took away that. And so we've been fighting for years. And during COVID, 2022, the federal government restored that. So what that means, and those things are really good, because what it means is when the federal government is funding those kind of things, it brings in Hawaii money into our states to help, like not only us, but help everyone who's qualified for that. So what else do we do? Oh, and then we're a lot of the times, because of there's a lot of, we do virtual outreach every week. So a lot of people from the mainland who don't have any way to connect to services, they call us for the need, or like for to help them with health insurance. So like even though the Medicaid is restored to all like to all the state, it's really up to the governors in its states to activate that program in their states. So a lot of the other Micronesians in the mainland are still without health coverage from the federal government. So this is one of the effort for us to we partner up under a grant from this organization called APCHO. We're able to go out there and meet. I never realized that there's, even in small cities like Huron in South Dakota, there is a group of Micronesians. And we met with people from Minnesota, from Iowa, from North Carolina, Tennessee, all came to one place in Huron in South Dakota, and we were able to meet with them. In fact, next week we're going to Arkansas. So it's just really exciting to finally find a way to bring our people together, and to fight for the needs we need here in America, in United States and back home, especially with with the way things are. I talked about that already. I talked about that. So this is our youth center, youth empowerment center. A lot of our youth are lost here. When they come here, they get involved with all these, um, unfortunate activities. And so we were inspired to, to do these programs to help our youth that are runaway, are struggling with, being confused of who they are, their identity, their culture. They don't even know their culture anymore. So in this center, we are able to bring in youth to expose them to their culture. Like that's the closest they can get to their culture, where we have our artifacts, our flags, or our kupunas that can talk to them about who we are. When we have our programs, we make sure we introduce, like different cultural activities so that they can at least get their hands on those things. And we're in the process of um, we have a curriculum to which it we call it Matauhegan, which literally means like the ocean, and you're going back, like finding your way back in the ocean. And that is a cultural framework, a navigational framework for a person to find themselves, or like like wayfinder, like identify who they are. For our youth, that's really critical. A lot of them are ashamed of who they are because they come to learn here. Micronesians are, the word Micronesia, it's really negative and has like stigma, negatives. And so a lot of the kids, they would, when they shared their stories, they would share about how they don't want, in schools, they don't want to say I am Micronesian, because they feel like that is a target on them, that they will either not graduate, or like they will not have opportunities. So a lot of them are really ashamed to share that. So that's, to me, I know we have, our program is huge, but this is where my heart is, because I know these kids are capable. I know these kids are good people. It's just that they're lost, and they just need someone to believe in them. They need someone to guide them. And this is why we do the work. And in our culture, we call the youths, the word for them is the light of the land. um Haraman Fanu, meaning like the light of the land. Without youths, it's like you don't have any future. So this is why we really invest in them. And I'm so proud to say that in the 2 years we've worked with them under our anti-hate project, um, we had helped 20 students enroll in college. And this year we're helping 20 more students. So we can really see, the difference. These kids are so eager to come and learn and be inspired by other youths that are in college or are working out in the community. This is our annual event, the Youth Summit. And at the Youth Summit, we have like cultural activities. We have what we call career readiness panel or workshop. We have college readiness workshops. Um, and and this space was actually just created for the youths to experience a positive space where they can be who they are, they can be Micronesians, and they can really experience what is a Micronesian. Uh, like I always said, my picture of or my image of Micronesia is so beautiful because I know my culture and I know how it is like back home and how it is like but these kids who are born and raised here, they have a very different understanding of Micronesia and picture of Micronesia. So this event is so popular among them, and they're welcome to bring their friends. So we don't just serve Micronesians, we serve anybody. Like we have ESL classes, so we have Filipinos, Chinese, and then we also have Samoans, Native Hawaiians who are just interested in learning or like are really close with any of them, that will come with them to, you know, to be with them on that day and just emerge in the culture. So it's really, really awesome. Let me see. Yeah, so this is our where we located. We started out with just a one-stop center, and that's located right close to Mere Rice. If anyone of you is familiar with Oahu, we're like in the heart of Kalihi. Yeah. And Kamakapili Church, we're like right next, not yeah, we're our campus just, adjacent to each other. And then the youth center is one block down. We're right opposite of near rights on King Street, right opposite, yeah, in that corner with Jollibee, and it's called the Kingsgate Mall, I think. And then this is our information. And that's what I prepared to share with you folks today. Yeah. And this is just, and we sang this at our get together, right? We sang our anthem song, We Are Oceania. And I want to open up for questions.
That was awesome, Josie. Very
Thank you.
inspiring. And yeah, we'll open up for any questions or comments. And I
Yeah, wow, Josie, that's super inspiring work you guys doing, and um, not an easy task,
No.
I believe. But I just want question maybe if you can give like a brief description of how maybe like what happened
Mm-hmm.
to you and your people, and maybe like how you guys got this. I don't know if displaced or whatever.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I know like it's weird for me to tell like the story of WoW without, kind of like understanding. So like the whole Pacific Ocean, in the early 1500s or middle of 1500s, the missionaries came into Micronesia, or the Spanish, and I learned the history. They bought the islands out. So my island was bought, um, and the people were living there. This probably was during my great great grandmother time. They didn't know that their lands were sold to Spain, and then and then the Spanish era ended. The Germans came in. Their interest was really in coconut production. So when the Germans came in, Spain sold some of the lands to them. Also, the German uh, bought lands that were conducive to planting coconut. So my island was sold to the Germans again, by the chief and I'm just using my island as an example because I have that story and I can share that story. And it was sold with one hat and a coat. Um, yeah. And then the Germans removed the people from these outlying islands. And I learned from school when I went to Hilo in my history class that there was a tsunami in the early in 1901, and that's why people were removed. Now, the story from my mom is that people were removed to Saipan, which is another island close to Guam, so that the Germans can plant coconut and plantation, and it was for their plantation. And when I talk about islands, this island like my island, these islands are really small. So I think for people from big countries like Germany, when they come to the ocean and they see this like little islands in the ocean, they think, oh, the people, we can just remove them. No need worry about them because they're small people. There's only 200 of them, or there's only 100 of them, or there's only 50 of them. But for us, the ocean is our home. I forgot to mention why We Are Oceania, because we refer to ourselves as the people of the ocean. So we live on the lands, but the ocean is our place. That's where we get our fish, that's where we connect to our people and all that. So the Germans came in, bought a lot of the lands, and then World War One broke out, and then it ended in 1914, and the Japanese came right in after that, and they annexed the islands. They took over the government, the local government, and they um, so like even small islands, like remote islands like mine, there were Japanese stationed on my island. Like half of the island they took, and then the half that the Germans bought earlier, they put the people. And that area is not, we cannot grow taro because it's mostly coconut. It's sand islands, so they took where they can plant all the good food because the soil is better. In most islands, they did that. And they were not only in Micronesia, they were also in Solomon Islands, they were, in Papua New Guinea, all over the Pacific. But at least I can share our story. And so Japanese annexed the islands. They came in, they brought in Okinawans to work their factories. The Japanese were the first to introduce formal education to Micronesian, but in Japanese education system. They also they were also the first one who, yeah, like brought in their military, and they recruited local people to be part of their military. And then World War II broke out, and then the Americans came in under the United Nations. They gave them the responsibility to help us get back on our feet, help our infrastructure, and then they're supposed to leave us and we become independent finally. Well, this is why we came to the compact agreement, because according to my uncles who were part of the forefathers and building of our nation, was that uh, because after World War II, when the United States gave the not United States, United Nation gave United States the responsibility. The Navy were the ones who came in to rebuild. I guess they already had their interest in the islands, and I learned that during that era, 1940 to I think 1950s, was the Cold War, between Soviet Union, right? So United States were interested in our area for testing. So you can see that right after World War II ended, they started the testing in the Marshall Islands all the way up to the I think it was 53 or 54, something like that. Yeah, or 58. Yeah. And so they already kind of know that we cannot let go of this area because it's critical for our defense. It's critical for our, like strategic military, purpose. So, but for us common people, we don't know that. We just saw the Americans as very, very, how do you call it, friendly people. But our leaders, they sense that, and my uncle always tell me, there's no friends. There's always something that they need, and anyways, so they were gonna make the islands a commonwealth. And then the local leaders were like, if we're a commonwealth, we're gonna lose our lands, because that means they're gonna take over our lands, and we're gonna become how they call, like, they're gonna have to ask the government for a piece of land for them to be on. And that's not how our culture and our governing system was. Lands are passed on through the woman, through the clan, and for the man, when they get married, they follow their wife, because the wife holds the food for their children, and it runs in the family. And we call it ainang, meaning the clan system, which is a woman. So yeah, so when they're supposed to help us stand up, become, regain our autonomy, but they already have an interest to stay in Micronesia forever. We're like right south, north, southwest of Hawaii, because Hawaii already became a state. So if we put all of this into perspective of history, we can, like, that's where I start to learn those things. And that's why I'm really passionate about that. And yeah, so you can really see the history, like the Philippines, occupation in the Philippines, Hawaii became a state. So we became very important to them, because we have to be the shield for any of these four countries here, like Russia, and then, Iraq, and all of this came later. But yeah, so that's how our leaders actually came up with the idea of the compact of reassociation. So they said, we're going to need them for protection, and for money, because we don't have money. Our islands are small. We don't have a way to make, money, but we need to protect our land. That's the only autonomy we have, is the land. We lose the land, we lose who we are. Yeah. So we're still holding on to that until today. But I can tell you, with this influence of China in the Pacific, the military is moving back into our islands. And it's really interesting to see how that's going to unfold. But my concern is that there's an increased activities of military, because they have to protect United States from China taking over the South Pacific and the North Pacific, where Micronesia is. Like I said, our government, we are independent politically, so that we do have relationship with China, diplomatic, meaning, we have a friendly relationship with them. We can do business with them. The only thing we cannot do is military, because that's part of the agreement. So for the Marshall Islands, it has a different story. This nuclear testing, they had to move people from those islands, like in a way that they move everybody out and they did the testing, or people were still there while they were doing the testing. So a lot of people died from cancer. Babies were deformed. I mean, were born deformed. Um, until today, Kwajalein is still used by the U.S. military uh, to house the Ronald Reagan ballistic missiles launching. So, Hawaii has one, Micronesia has one, and California has one. So when they said, oh, we're launching the rockets and we're gonna intercept in the Pacific, it intercepts in the Marshall Islands, in the Kwajalein Atoll. Kwajalein Atoll is the largest atoll in the world. Yeah. And it's housed the Ronald Reagan ballistic missiles. And that island, that lagoon, or that island is the biggest also in the Marshall Islands. And so what they did to the indigenous people, they took them, they put them in a very small island, on a very small island, maybe the size of Magic Island here on Oahu, and maybe Magic Island plus some part of Ala Moana. But what that means is when you go to that island, it's just houses. There's no breadfruit, there's no taro, there's no local food. They depend heavily on imported goods. So they're very, very unhealthy too. Yeah. And they don't have access to their home island, Kwajalein, because the military is using that. So when they come to their island, they have to land in Kwajalein, but they have to quickly taken by a ferry back to the to Ibai. Yeah. So, and there's more going on in the Marshall Islands, which I cannot really speak to because I'm not from there. But you know, yeah. So that's the part that is happening. Guam, for example, was already a U.S. territory. It's kind of like American Samoa, Puerto Rico. So they I don't know about American Samoa, but Guam, they don't have it becomes a US territory, so they also lost their lands. They have to buy their lands in order to stay on their lands. A lot of uh local people lost their lands. Yeah.
Mahalo for
Yes.
sharing, Josie. There's definitely a lot of history that we don't know about, especially as locals or Native Hawaiians, which a lot of the not confusion per se, but misunderstandings I think come from. And so I'm excited to be able to share this and for people to learn more. I did have a question though on especially with your guys' youth program and your folks' history has a lot obviously to do with that. And not to say that Hawaii is in the same circumstances, but similar circumstances of not knowing their identity, although we even can still be on our aina per se. But and I don't know if you had to grow through this yourself with moving over to Hawaii, but especially in helping your folks youth, how have you how do you help your youth program find their identity as a Micronesian, especially being displaced or a diaspora outside of their home islands?
Honestly, to be honest with you, the only confidence I have in running this program and in building this program is the culture that I was able to learn and sustain with me, and also sustain me in being successful in my goal in what I came to Hawaii for, to get my education. I didn't realize I was gonna stay back. My goal was to come and get my education, go back home. And I felt like maybe this is my calling, to help my people to acculturate and also to know their own story, because a lot of us don't know our story. For me, I think it helped. And that's why I changed my major, because I felt like anthropology helped me to learn my own story. and to appreciate my story and to understand better that this is actually more dangerous than the diseases that we're getting. I think the diseases are already there, but being unaware of what is happening to you or you being colonized is very dangerous.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so when in helping the youth, I knew what worked for me, what cultural values helped me succeeded in certain areas. So when I see the youth experience or go into those certain areas and are like hit rock bottom or like hit the wall and don't know how to either go over it or to break it down or to go under or whatever, I feel like those cultural values really help. And that's why I believe in teaching them that, because they don't have that. And I do know that they will never learn it the way I learn it, or they will never internalize it the way I do until they go back home and they feel it, they smell it, they taste it, they live it. Yeah. And so like being with you folks in May and seeing the little ones come and work with us, they're so fortunate. I think that's one thing that our community is lacking, is the connection to the land, because we're naturally, part of the land and the ocean. So I really hope that this youth will be able to go back home. Yeah. And learn that. Yeah. And then I also believe that when you know who you are, you know your culture, you get to appreciate the other culture, and you get to know how to respect the other culture, because you have reference. You can reference it to your own. Yeah. Yes.
How cool
So I
that.
told my daughters, before you learn like hula, or if you want to learn Tahitian, you first have to learn your own, because those dances, uh, you know, I know from my own culture, you don't just dance something, or you don't just, there are things that we know that, yeah. So that's what I told them. You need to know yours first, so that you know all the rules around it, so then you can respect others. Yeah.
I owe to that a lot. And
Thank you.
I can attest to the same thing, because I did not see the value and the respect that other cultures uphold until I started to understand my own identity as a Kanaka Hawai'i here in Hawaii. So I mahalo you for all your work that you do, Josie, and you're definitely a pillar in these keikis' lives. And we're excited to get to know you folks more and be able to share your story, because it's definitely important here in Hawaii, especially to our local and Native Hawaiian communities. But is there anything else that anyone would like to say, or any other questions?
Yeah, I just like say a mahalo to you too, Josie, and thank you for all your hard work that you're doing for your community and your people. And the first time I heard you explain about what happened to you guys, to your people, and to your Aina, and how much the Spanish and the German and the Japanese, oh, that's really hit the heart there. But yeah, thank you for your manao and the stories and the work that you do. Thank you very much, Josie.
Thank you to Junior. Mahalo.
Any other last comments, Josie, that you want to leave us with before we end off today?
I just really want to, thank you, my deep appreciation and gratitude for allowing me to share this space with you. And I just want to share my hope and dream for our youth, that, hopefully one day our youths will be able to come together and know that they're all from the ocean. Yeah. Aloha.
Okay,
Ahuiho.